Plaza. My name is Frederick Carligran, Vice President of Marketing at Toshiba Global Commerce Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us at this live session. I am really excited to be here talking about some brand new research that we are coming out with together with Payments.com. And so Karen Webster, CEO of Payments.com, joins us right now. How you doing, Karen?
Hey, Frederick, I'm great. How are you? Nice to virtually see you.
Yeah, nice to virtually see you as well. Obviously it'd be great if we were in New York together. We were just chatting a few minutes ago about, what that would be like. And obviously the show must go on, and it does. And for us, that's a hybrid experience. But regardless of where we are, the conversation in retail continues, right? And NRF is always one of those venues where you start really looking ahead at what's 2022 going to be like? What are the trends and discussions that are happening? And so, before we dive into the research, just wanted to kind of get a couple of perspectives from you on what you're seeing and hearing as you're entering 2022.
Sure, of course. And Frederick, we could say that we're doing this in the Metaverse. I mean, that is the thing.
Exactly.
The Metaverse. We can make that claim. There's a lot going on, of course, and it isn't as if 2022 is any different than what we saw in 2021. But there's an increasing emphasis on a couple of things that I think will define the strategies of retailers going forward. I think the first one is that physical is now part of the digital experience, and I think that's a distinction with a difference very different than digital being an extension of physical. Now, regardless of where consumers and brands, merchants are interacting, it's really a digital first environment. And I think for retailers, they really need to take on board the notion that the physical space is part of the digital experience that consumers expect now. And that has to be what they plan for, what they invest in, how their technology enables those experiences for those consumers, certainly moving forward. I think as an adjunct to that, there's a second thing that I think is starting to really become a defining feature for how consumers make their decisions about what they're buying and who they're buying it from. And it used to be that consideration was largely about convenience and drive time. How quickly can I get in the car and go get what I need? And now proximity is no longer a barrier because digital makes that an irrelevant consideration. And so as retailers think about physical being part of the digital experience and the fact that consumers now have more choice because proximity is no longer defined by how long it takes for them to drive to and from a store, that also has an impact on how they think about integrating technology into the experiences that they're delivering to their consumers. And I think, the final thing, which is a secular trend, a macro trend that we're seeing, that we started to see really at the end of 2019 as we moved from the decade of mobile devices and apps to the decade that we're in of connected devices and ecosystems, that digital is starting to erode the bright lines between verticals. So, in the mobile app space, digital and physical, the bright lines became, more blurry and more blurry. And now we're starting to see those bright lines really become very fuzzy between things like eating. If you think about what now consumers are thinking about, it's how and where they buy food and how and where they eat it. And it's not just the grocery store or restaurants anymore or meal kits. They're all part of an ecosystem that consumers think about as eating, not about going to the grocery store to buy food, going to restaurants to eat out. It's a very interesting ecosystem that we're seeing take shape. And a lot of players are obviously trying to stake their claim in getting, that share of stomach, if you will, from the consumer.
Yeah, interesting. And you talk about that breakdown and unification of the physical and the digital. We did some research last year, actually, that looked at that digital shifter, right? And the consumer's preference towards, in general, more of these conveniences as the ongoing expectation, really through pandemic and beyond, right? So I think we're continuing to see that. And now, so let's get a
Sure.
little bit into the research, that we
Yep.
did together now. Before we get into some of the specifics of it, you just want to recap a little bit about kind of the scope of what it is the study entailed as we try to decode that loyalty question?
Yeah, for sure. So we've done a couple of other studies with you about the digital shift, as you mentioned, but this time we really wanted to understand the relationship between where consumers shop, how they buy, and the loyalty, whether that loyalty is to the retailer or whether the loyalty to the products they're buying inside of those storefronts for grocery and pharmacy products. We studied a group of consumers, about 2,100, 2,097 to be exact, between November the 30th and December the 7th, and asked them a series of questions to really get to that loyalty question: store loyalty, brand loyalty, and then what would drive a consumer to consider switching.
So, instead of saving the punchline for the end, right? Let's kind of get
Ta-da.
into because there's a lot of data points in there too, and we have that full study available now for any of you to have a look at. But I think to me, one of the really interesting points was that notion of digital capability and conveniences that digital experiences drive. And over a third of consumers said that not only is it expected and wanted, but it can actually be a key component to warranting them shifting loyalty for where and how they shop. Now, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
price and proximity were still the
Yep.
first two, and that makes sense. But I think
Yep.
that's a pretty significant number, and therefore significant implications for retailers as they look at investments and things that they prioritize over the course of the next year. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what you see as some of those implications for retailers with that information.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. I mean, the statistic specifically is 35% of grocery and pharmacy shoppers said that they would switch retailers if, in fact, a better digital experience could be obtained. And that's relevant when you put it into the context of the other findings that sort of lead up to that punchline. So, let's take grocery and pharmacy. They have the benefit of frequency. So consumers go to the grocery store and shop. They go to the pharmacy to pick up their prescriptions and other things, and they do that on a regular basis. In fact, our study showed that 80% of consumers made a trip to the grocery store, and 49% of consumers made a trip to the pharmacy to get whatever they needed over the course of the last 30 days. So you've got traffic. You have people going in to those establishments to get what they need. And we then queried, how would you characterize your loyalty? The reason you choose one store over another. Is it because they have the products you want, or is it because you're loyal to the brand? And there we saw kind of an interesting diversification of response. 53% of grocery store shoppers said, I'm loyal to the store. And in fact, I buy a lot of the products that I buy because the store carries them. The pharmacy shoppers, on the other hand, are loyal to the product. And it kind of makes sense. When your doctor gives you a prescription, you go to where the prescription is available, where your insurance may fulfill it or fill it. So product is what's driving the decision of that particular store. But then we dug into some of the other aspects of shopping to understand, well, how many stores do you shop? And what's interesting for me is that the pharmacy shoppers, maybe one or two, but mostly a smaller set. Grocery store shoppers go to a variety of stores. Almost as many consumers go to one or two grocery stores as go to two or three or four, which I found interesting. It was 51%, 49%. So consumers are already going to a number of different stores to buy what they want, because that is the grocery shopping pattern and relationships that they developed. Now, you layer on top of that the fact that 35% of grocery shoppers say, and pharmacy shoppers say, that they would switch stores to get a better digital experience. That's a risk. that's a risk because consumers are already going to multiple stores. So they already have the ability to compare and contrast those experiences. And if I'm a brand, if I'm a store, I should take that as a wake-up call, because if you don't have the digital experiences that consumers want, they'll go elsewhere.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, right? Because you said that they're already looking at or already experiencing different retailers and engaging in different ways. And so, as someone sets themselves apart, given the rise and importance of digital capabilities, that could sway essentially the share of wallet that retailer would get over time. So that is interesting that's part of the natural shopping behavior. And I think we saw that across demographics as well.
Yep.
So that's interesting. The other piece that stuck out was, we kind of alluded to it, this ensuring that products are in stock and available to buy, right? And there's lots of conversations I'm sure we're having with our clients, you're having with retailers you talk to about accuracy in terms of inventory, real-time inventory visibility. So we talk a little bit about that in terms of the data points and maybe some of the things you're hearing and seeing.
I think this is fascinating, and I think it's probably more important now than ever with the supply chain shortages and so forth. When consumers go to the store, the physical store, the one thing that they don't have that they have when they shop online is the certainty of availability, right? So what consumers get when they shop online is they can see right away, do you have what I want to buy, yes or no? And if that particular website doesn't have it, they can go elsewhere and continue to go to get what they want. But it's different when you're going into a physical establishment. You don't really know. Do you really have what I want? And is it going to be worth my time to have the uncertainty of not knowing whether my favorite brand is on the shelf inside the store? So we see that that's important to 51% of shoppers, grocery shoppers in particular. And what I found most interesting about that is, always you see consumers, yes, I care about, product. Yes, I care about price. Yes, I care about, things like, do you have what I want to buy at the price I want to pay? But inventory availability, 51% of consumers said that was important. As important as having friendly staff, more important than having loyalty programs, more important than having the availability of the payment methods that they want to use, more important than a lot of other things that I think are features and attributes that retailers may be investing in that really aren't as important as eliminating that uncertainty and confusion on the part of consumers to know that what I want to buy, you have in the store when I'm ready to go in and shop.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the associate experience and interaction and friendly staff, right? Because that is an important part of it, and makes me also kind of come back to that discussion point that we often have, that while technology is an enabler of new sets of capabilities and activities, how you operationalize that, self-service is a great example on the front end, and the retailers who can have similar self-service experiences, it can be significantly different in terms of the operational benefits that they see based on how they're staffing and so forth. So it's interesting that will always play a role in retail because of the physicality and the nature of that experience. So you talked a little bit, we were looking at grocery and pharmacy, and there are some distinct differences, some commonalities and differences between the two. One of the things that we saw, obviously, to your point, was that in grocery especially, there was much more likely that you were shopping multiple stores. Any other things that jumped out at you in terms of the key differences between pharmacy and grocery from a loyalty perspective?
Well, I think I think one of the things that I mentioned earlier is the difference between product driving store choice and affinity to store driving store choice for deciding where consumers are going to shop. And I think that's one of the unique aspects of pharmacy and prescriptions is you don't necessarily have a choice of a physical store depending upon what your insurance availability is and who's got the right prescription at the right price. But I do think that this is where you might be able to start to align this proximity issue, because what's very important to um, shoppers when they're choosing their pharmacy is obviously the availability of the product they need to buy. But if proximity is also a determiner of that decision, and consumers are concerned about price, and they can go online to buy in fact what they need at a cheaper price point from an online pharmacy, there's a risk that they'll do that. And I think that is where you see product driving, obviously selection of store, but product also feeding into the earlier trend that I mentioned, which is proximity is no longer a barrier. If I can get what I need cheaper online, perhaps I'll do that, because my loyalty isn't to the pharmacy, it's really to the product I need to buy.
Right. Yeah. Good point. So, then the next subsequent question is, so what does it mean to be digitally ready, right? And to really address this. You recently had an interview with our CEO, Rance Paler,
Yeah.
talking about this connected economy and the implications for how retailers really can thrive and adapt. I know there was some discussion there about the need to relentlessly experiment and iterate and move more quickly, right? And that's obviously things we've done. Actually, today, we made some new announcements around our commerce platform, and that really enables some of that agility. But what are some of your points that you see as that digital readiness to take advantage of, if you will, the opportunity to gain loyalty among consumers?
Yeah, I think, it goes back to, a mindset, right? I think the mindset is that physical is part of the digital experience, and you have to be able to support that. And that requires, infrastructure that enables you to deliver the digital features that consumers want and find valuable. It doesn't have to be everything, but it's the important things that matter to consumers, that give them the certainty that what they want to buy in the store is going to be available to them, that they have the ability to take control of the checkout experience, whether that is, through a self-serve, unattended checkout lane, or whether that's through a mobile app where they're able to check out as they're shopping throughout the store. Those are the experiences that consumers value, because they value their time, they're comfortable with digital, and they want to be able to still experience the store, but not lose any of the benefits that they find when they shop online. I mean, I think that Rance really made that point, his point about experimentation. You don't have to rip and replace to get some of the benefits of some of these things that really make a difference to consumers and will keep them shopping with you, rather than drifting to a competitor that has mastered the digital opportunity and the digital experience for those consumers.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Karen, for joining us in this chat where we're just barely scratching the surface here in our metasphere, as you said, around loyalty and what's driving that. Any final thoughts, Karen, from you before we close today and let people know where they can get more information about our research together?
Yeah, I think the only other thing I would add is that there's this debate between, is it physical, is it digital? And I think that the takeaway is, it's both. It's this experience where consumers can get the best of both worlds when they go into the store to shop. Shopping online is a transaction. It's getting it done. We've all done it. We've all ordered things online, and you get what you need, and it's efficient, and it's an efficient way to do that. The store experience has to be an experience, and it's different. And I think with the digital enablement that is possible now with platforms like you provide, big retail, consumers can have it both. They can have the efficiency of online with the experience of having a digital experience inside their favorite store as they're shopping. And I think that's really the 2022 roadmap for retail, and the opportunity that they should be seizing and really investing in providing for their customers.
Well, thank you. I mean, we agree, Karen, and I think those are really great parting words and thoughts to share. I want to wish you a great 2020 to health and prosperity. Thank you, Karen, so much for joining us today. And thank you all for joining us live here. Please feel free to visit us at acceleratewithpurpose.com, where you can find all the information about Toshiba product solutions, but also our latest research that we've done together with payments.com around decoding loyalty in 2022. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.